we have some details on what the White House and Senate Republicans have been working on to provide relief to Americans who are suffering as a result of this economy coming to a screeching halt. Now, it's come to a screeching halt for good reason. People are practicing social distancing in response to the spread of COVID-19, and several industries have taken a hit. And so publicly, Republicans make it seem like they're coming from the left, like they're out-lefting Democrats. But in reality, you look at what they're proposing and it's garbage. So first of all, they certainly do prioritize businesses and industries before they even really consider what Americans need to get by and pay their bills through this process. For instance, restaurants, they say, restaurants are saying that they need $325 billion in federal assistance. Boeing wants $60 billion. The travel industry has requested $250 billion, and manufacturers are seeking $1.4 trillion in loans to deal with the economic devastation. Now, I mentioned what they're asking for because, as I said, from what we're seeing from Republicans, they're really prioritizing these businesses. Senate Republicans unveiled legislation that included $58 billion in loans and loan guarantees for passenger airlines and cargo carriers, $150 billion for unspecified eligible businesses. And I wonder if Trump's going to get some of that money. I wouldn't be surprised.
Mar-a-Lago just shut down. He might want some.
I would not be surprised. And $300 billion for small business loans, as well as direct cash payments to Americans. Ooh, direct cash payments to Americans. Let's get into the details about that, right? Mm-hmm. So we've already mentioned that they wanted to do means testing. Their means testing is as mean as it gets. So individuals making, it's terrible, like individuals making $75,000 based on a 2018 tax return would be eligible for $1,200 payments or $2,400 for couples filing jointly. Now, this is where you should pay close attention because this is where the means testing comes in. And people making more start getting less, but people making far less get even less. So individuals, where is it? Okay, so the payments would decrease for those making more than $75,000 with an income cap of $99,000 per individual or $198,000 for couples. The payments would also increase $500 for each child a person or couple has. However, taxpayers with little or no income tax liability, meaning people who make so little money that they don't pay federal taxes, but at least $2,500 of qualifying income would be eligible for only $600 or $1,200 for couples. The direct deposits appear to be just a one-time payment rather than two payments as initially proposed by the White House. Mm-hmm. So the poor essentially get screwed over by this proposal. They're not actually doing two payments. They're doing a one-time thing. And the means testing is, it's stupid. People are desperate right now. And they, first of all, should offer far more in relief. And they shouldn't punish people living in poverty. And one other thing to keep in mind, this doesn't offer any type of protection or any type of relief for the 11 million undocumented people in this country, right? Many of whom do work, many of whom do pay taxes, Social Security taxes, sales taxes, depending on which state they're in, but they don't get any relief at all. Mm-hmm. Zero.
Yeah, it's problematic even for the people who are going to get money. Like, some people are saying hypothetically something like the current situation could exist for a year and a half. So when you get that $1,000, you're going to want to pace yourself with your spending on that $1,000 over the next year and a half. But you rightfully point out, like, I look at the numbers, like the, 60 billion for this, 350 billion, like a lot of Americans, I think I look at that number and I have no idea if that's actually what's needed. The restaurant industry needs 325 billion. I don't know. I react like I think a lot of people, maybe, I don't know. But I can look at who's not getting anything. I can see that and be, I think, rightfully frustrated by that. So it's going to be based on your 2018 tax return. That's a good idea because everyone has one of those, right? No, not everyone has one of those, and not everyone's economic situation is the same as it was back when they filed their taxes for 2018. And so if you if you're undocumented, if you're homeless, if you haven't worked for literally years, you could end up being incredibly left behind in this. And and it's not coincidental, of course, that all of these people who are going to receive the least relief are the ones who need it the most desperately.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one other thing that I have a problem with is they're arguing that they want to provide all of this money to industries that have been hurt from coronavirus because they want to have these companies pass over certain protections like paid leave, for instance. First of all, I mean, I would be shocked if Republicans actually included any type of enforcement or safeguards to ensure that that happens with the money. But secondly, this is for people who employees who have, I guess, wage jobs or are on payroll. But what happens to freelancers? What kind of relief is offered for freelancers? And I don't see anything in their proposal to protect them and to help them out. So
Yeah.
there are, some real flaws, some real issues here. And one of the other issues that I have is that Trump just straight up lied about the type of protections that he would offer to people who could be unhoused as a result of this. So let's hear what he had to say, and then I'll give you the details on what he's actually doing.
Today, I'm also announcing that the Department of Housing and Urban Development is providing immediate relief to renters and homeowners by suspending all foreclosures and evictions until the end of April. So we're working very closely with Dr. Ben Carson and everybody from HUD.
So the reality is, under the Department of Housing and Urban Development's plan, which was released Wednesday, foreclosures and evictions would stop for 60 days on single family homes with loans through the Federal Housing Administration. That would apply to roughly 8 million units, according to HUD. Only FHA homes lived in for at least a year can be rented out. And by the way, that's compared with roughly 43 million households who rented in 2019, according to the US Census. So this is not anywhere near what we need to protect people during this time.
Even when they want you to believe that now they take it seriously, they appear to take it seriously enough to say the right things, but the reality never matches it. It's enough to reassure people, to potentially get them to think that Donald Trump is a good leader in this crisis, but not necessarily enough to stop the bottom from dropping out for millions and millions of Americans. And it's incredibly short-sighted because, I mean, how long do they think they can keep all of these deceitful balls in the air? At some point, they're going to come down. Like those people who are going to end up being evicted because your statement doesn't actually protect them, that's going to be devastating. The economy is going to be hit. Like your lies can fool people like on the surface, but they can't actually prop up an economy. They can't keep people from dying. They can't keep people from going bankrupt.
Exactly. And I just think it's important to really be clear about, you know, Brett accurately called me out specifically, like during a break, about how, yeah, look, Democrats aren't really offering as much as they should, but don't be mistaken about Republicans and what they're doing. Because, at that moment, there was a lot of strong talk coming from the likes of like Senator Mitt Romney about how, like, let's get cash into the hands of Americans now. And that was the message from Republicans. And at the time, we were hearing about means testing from Democrats. And that was irritating, right? But don't get it twisted. Republicans certainly want means testing as well. And the way that they would apply it is even more cruel.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that everyone's like fully aware of what's happening. And what I would like to see from Democrats is some strength. Like this is the perfect opportunity to really implement progressive policies that would help Americans. I mean, policies that they claim that they've been in favor of, right? But they can't do it because there's all this obstruction and they can't work with. This is the perfect time to really use your platform as a Democrat to push for things that could not just temporarily relieve what Americans are going through, but relieve what Americans have been going through economically for a while now. And they have all the leverage when you really think about it, all of the political leverage.
Yeah.
They should be using this opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they had the right presidential candidate, I think the Democratic Party could put forward that message if they supported that candidate and if they supported that platform.